now. About to witness the awesome, crushing might of yes! Round number 327, baby. I am your host, Eugene S. Robinson. The show is called Knuckle Up. Welcome to it. We got a shitload of shit to discuss. But first, Stigmata. Calling of the Just. The bumper song is called Intro All of Nothing. And as you well know, unless you don't well know, in which case I'll inform you, that we don't start the show until the magic words are spoken by Mr. Bob Riley. He's on Facebook. Tell him his music is much appreciated, just so he can sue me or something like that. No, he's still a friend. I put the music out. That's why I can play more than 30 seconds of it. I own the rights. But these are the words that say it all, especially apropos today. I'm on my way back to nowhere. I took my time with a good night. I'm taking a real good look at you. I'm taking a real good look at your face. Being paid back in full, always nothing. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not kidding myself. There are no ladies listening to this show. I imagine there's like one, and there's very definitely no gentlemen, plural, listening to the show. The gentleman, one gentleman and one lady. You know, I always thought it was funny they called them gentlemen's clubs. You're not going to find a single fucking, I guess that's what gentlemen do, right? And pants around the ankles, penis in the fist. Is that a gentlemanly thing to do? I don't know, but that's what's happening in gentlemen's clubs. But I digress. Early on, I digress. The title of this is UFC Cowboy versus Broke versus Back versus Mountain, because Kid Nate told me, or strongly suggested, that before I put the words Knuckle Up on the title, for SEO purposes, search engine optimization, I should put UFC Cowboy versus Cowboy, but not able to leave well enough alone. I put UFC Cowboy versus Broke versus Back versus Mountain, which is a lot of what I saw when I see these guys in there with the cowboy hats. But, you know, Michael Gira wears one. You know, I sported one once in 1983 for comedic value, but the appeal to keep the sun off my neck, I guess, I'm lost. But that's not what we're talking about. No. Don't think for a second that this UFC that we just saw is going to give a UFC Fight Night, Cerrone versus Oliveira, is going to give cover for something that is got to be talked about. And it's got to be talked about in the context, okay, sit back, and what you're expecting to happen is not going to happen right about now, all right? So what I'm anticipating that you're expecting is that I will say Bellator, this Bellator fight, shit show of the century, and then I will spend 40 minutes unloading on the Bellator fight. But let's back into it a bit. And I'm looking away from the screen right now because I want to get some information off of my phone about Bellator 149. All right. So let's back into what we saw, okay? And I'll just call it up right. Sorry, it's a little late for me. I'll just call it up right now. All right, here we go. So what we saw was a Bellator promotion. You know what? I'm sorry. I'm going to go back a little bit before that. All right. I'm going to go back. And where we are is Ben Henderson jumping ship. And now you've got Ben Henderson. You have got Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis. You've got purportedly fighters making sotto voce calls to Ben Henderson about, and then you've got the all too pleasing sight. You realize to a certain degree that what you were missing, that what you were missing was the sort of chaos element of the old days, right? That pretty much that what you were missing from the UFC, that you kind of totally absent was the visual chaos that came from, and the stylistic leg up that came from people having different things on their shorts. Who was the military guy who, instead of having a sponsor on his banner, in the center of his banner, or a photograph of himself, had, like, his sister had done some kind of paint by numbers thing, and then they put it in the center with some app they found online that put this really garish kind of gold frame around it. And it's like, you know what? I found that I missed that. I found that I missed. It was like when I hadn't gone to a basketball game after not having been to a basketball game in like 20 years, and they just go for sensory overload. They're the midgets. They're the guys running on the trampolines. And this is every time they have a commercial break, they give people who are sitting in the seats exciting shit. They're the clowns that run out with the T-shirt guns. They're shooting T-shirts and confetti. And then they're the cheerleaders, the bumping and grinding. And I mean, it is a fucking smorgasbord. I said, this is like Vegas on a full court. It was crazy. I mean, if you had been high on some psychoactive drug like LSD, it was a festival for the senses, is what I'm saying. Right? So you realize on viewing Bellator that Scott Coker is a fucking hell of a showman, because not only did you miss the kind of the panoply, the visual chaos of patch, shirts, this non-lockstep thing. Some guys come out with this style. Some guys come out with this style. Some guys' banners are janky. Some guy didn't even have a banner. Some guys have banners. You missed. You had visual catch points for everything, which are now totally absent from the UFC with the all in all, another brick in the wall, Pink Floyd, Reebok, you got it. Okay. So first of all, so Henderson is made. So Henderson, if you had been drifting off thinking about something else, Henderson got your attention. Phil Davis got your attention. Guys that that the UFC can't really say, they're washed up past sale. This is the place where old fighters go to. No, not necessarily. Mr. King Mo, we had this notion of King Mo that he was gonna at some point meet up with Quentin in the UFC. King Mo has long ago, I have no interest in going to the UFC. King Mo now getting rumors, or has it now been substantiated that fuck that Quentin Tarantino, Quentin Rampage Jackson going back. So all of a sudden you're like, I get shit. There's something happening here, and what it is ain't exactly clear. So you turn your attention back to Bellator. And no better occasion than that is a Friday night fight, Bellator 149, right? And now, Coach Dream Crusher, Surreal, I'm about to unload, or maybe it was a Care Don't Care preview or some such thing, where I was, if I did it, where I was unloading on the fight, and he starts screaming at me during the show, and I later, and he goes, "You're a fucking idiot." He goes, "This is just gonna be fun. Of course I want to see Hoist fight. Of course I want to see Shamrock fight. These You know, and then another guy who trains here said, you yourself, Eugene, came up with the MMAARP thing, the Golden Jubilee League, that this is the kind of shit that you should live for. And I told people going into this weekend, I said, I got a bad feeling about this, man. I got a bad feeling, you know. And Kid Nate was like, I think, you know, I think I feel a little sad too. I go, I didn't say sad. Sad is a superset of bad. I said bad. I said bad feeling. You know, I said I'm having a bad feeling about this. You know, and Kid Nate was like, well, I feel sad. I don't want to see these guys. I don't want anything bad to happen. It's not usually my usual take. And I said, you watch. You know, let me read you a text I just got. Now, I'm not going to give the guy's name because perhaps he doesn't want it given. He said, why the hell do I watch this shit? This weekend has done irreversible damage to my love of the sport. Okay? All right? I understand. I felt largely the same way. And I dragged my ass in to train today. I didn't go to train yesterday because I'm a good dad, at least to two of my daughters. And I went to my middle kid was at the state qualifier, came in 6th place. Last year she came in 4th, but this year with SAT she didn't train. She came in 6th. That means she won 6 matches, lost 2, still champ. So I didn't train on Saturday, but I dragged myself in there on Sunday. And I'm grousing, you know, it was the high highs and the low lows, and sort of a manic depressive thing where she's like crushing people, you know, in her wins, and then she loses in the end, and we go home early. And then I could focus back on things, and I'm focused back on Bellator 149. And I'm like, man, and I'm going backwards in time. And I'm like, man, this was, well, actually I'm inconsistent, bouncing around time. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, you know, this was terrible. And I look at Coach Dream Crusher Surreal, and I'm like, you are the one who's, and he was like, are you fucking kidding? Are you kidding? What's the matter with you? Except he said it with a Brazilian accent. He said, what's the matter with you? He goes, Scott Coker wanted eyes, and Scott Coker got eyes. Yeah, and I go, yeah, eyes for what? You know, I could take a fucking poop in the middle of the street and have you guys put it up on YouTube, and I would have eyes, but for what? And he goes, at a certain point, it doesn't make a difference. If you were gonna pitch, if you were gonna pitch your poop in the middle of the street pay-per-view post facto, it's a lot of P sounds. That might make good sense. And then suddenly I go, wait a minute, wait one goddamn minute. This Brazilian lunatic might have something. He's like, you know, it's what they call in is it sales, what they call a loss leader? In other words, we presume that Scott Coker doesn't know the difference between shit and shinola. The actual fact is, Scott Coker, of all people, knows the difference between shit and shinola. You know, but why did the bald one try? Why has he tried so consistently hard to keep CM Punk in the news, in MMA news? Why has he locked this guy up? The guy hasn't fought a single minute in the cage. Why? Kid Nate says to keep him out of the clutches of Bellator. And I remember I went to the Bellator event at the Shark Tank, the HP Pavilion in San Jose, where Scott Coker for the first time. Now at a point it's fait accompli. He's spun off. He's got Bellator kickboxing, which was his initial. He did the K1. He did stand-up stuff initially, way back. We're talking 15 years ago, before he got in the strike force, before any of that. He was a stand-up guy. So now he's spun it off. And there's still MMA guys who are fighting. It gives them a chance. It gives every single fighter who fights a chance to make way more money than they can make at the UFC, except for the top guys. So yes, the UFC will stay a premier league, but the farm league, you know, and it's not like, look, Ted Williams puts on a good King of the Cage, Gladiators Challenge. For those of you who don't know, not small, but regional. One is Northern California, one is Southern California, down at Saboba, I think it was a casino. These are good shows. Well run, respectable, well officiated. They run on time. Production value is significant. It's not impossible to do these shows. More importantly, it's impossible to do them as long as Scott Coker is doing them and not know the difference between shit and Shinola. So if Scott knows the difference between shit and Shinola, why is he selling you shit? Okay, somebody's saying shit never works. Look, I can't answer you while I'm doing the show. You know, what does she say? She says, shit never works. We almost don't go together anymore. Ass. I don't know what this means necessarily. I'll get to this later. But he knows the difference. So you have to ask, why is he selling us shit? Why is he selling us shit? He's either stupid, in which case he doesn't know the difference, and we've already ascertained that he does know the difference, or he's crazy. And now if he's crazy, you have to say, well, crazy would be something that doesn't benefit you at all. You know, a friend of mine, his woman that he knew, she goes in Starbucks, she buys a cup of coffee, takes a hot coffee out in front of Starbucks, turns around, faces Starbucks, and pours the hot cup of coffee over her head. And she stands there screaming and crying. The people at Starbucks call the cops. The cops take her away for observation, and they put her in a mental institution. My friend is terribly affected by this and spends the next 2 or 3 days, one, trying to find her, and two, once he's found her, trying to get in the mental institution to visit her so he can have sex with her in the mop closet. He's a humanitarian. He's just terrible. I can't find Molly. Where is she? I don't know. I go, did you find her? He goes, yes. You don't believe how much talk I had to do to get in there. Talk to her. I go, whoa, what is this? You know, we had sex in the chemical closet where they keep all the mops and the cleaning supplies. In the mental institution. He's like, and? Okay, I digress. So he knows the difference between shit, Shinola. He's not crazy because crazy is pouring coffee over your head outside of Starbucks. Crazy is not booking a fight when you have a follow-on fight where they're running promos every fucking 10 minutes. That's not crazy. That's good sense. All right? So let's go through the card briefly because this shit wasn't worth, you know, Jake Norseworthy, Emmanuel Zavala, Clovis Hancock, and Rubus. This was not, you know, Hancock. Look, let me tell you, these fights all looked terrible. You're sitting there watching and going, Jesus Christ, did these guys know they were fighting? You know, you know why they called Scott? You may not remember this guy, a Strikeforce fighter, Scott Hands of Steel Smith. You know why they called him Hands of Steel? Not because he knocked guys out, which he did. Not because he had heavy hands, which he did have, but because he was a steel worker or like a smithy or some shit like that. He would have to put in for time off from work to go to these fights. And he was training like a guy trains who works 50 hours a week. This is the model that Scott's drawn from. You know, if a guy is working 50 hours a week and you say, hey, why don't you show up Saturday night and fight? You know, you bring your kids, you know, your wife, you get a nice seat. You're killing a lot of birds with a lot of stones. You know, your family's already pissed off that you're spending 50, 60 hours a week at work. And then on top of that, probably going to train, but you got seats for the kids. You get the wife, you take a trip. I think he was from Sacramento. You could take a trip to the Bay Area. You know, you get treated nice. Maybe Scott he was giving food to journalists. Maybe he was giving a hotel room to the fighters. It's a deal. And the family's happy. You're happy. You fight. The guy gives you $7,000. You make $7,000 in one day. And on Monday, you're back at your desk. Or in Scott Smith's case, at the smithy, whatever he's doing, hand of steel. So yes, Scott Hands of Steel Smith might have known that he was fighting. He might have been aware of the fact that he was fighting, but he can't do anything about it. So when you see a Clovis Hancock fight, you like wonder, did this guy even know he was gonna fight? Did he even know he was gonna fight? Because if he knew, what's it like? Okay, yes, there's the adrenaline dump, and I'm here. And first of all, you know, none of this is accidental. See, we're led to conclude that they're doing the best they can. Don't even think about that. Don't even think about that, because that's not what's happening. They are doing exactly what they intend to do. Like I used to go to these college reunions, and I would get philosophically put out. I would go, man, these people, they had so much potential, and you know, they were full of dreams and passion, and look at them now. And I go, wait a minute. They were never full of dreams and passion. The fuck are you talking about? I must be talking about me. I was full of dreams and passion. In fact, I still am. These people had nothing going on in 1980, and they have even less going on in 1986. Or when did I start feeling depressed about reunions? I think I started feeling depressed about reunions 10 years in. There wasn't any potential. They have become exactly who they are. You feeling pity is a fucking luxury, and it's a luxury that many of us nary can afford. It's a cheap luxury because it implies that you're in a position to appreciate this. And make no mistake, they have become exactly who they are. There was no other path for them unless there are only two types of people who have problems, right? Everybody else has difficulties. If you have a terminal illness, you have a serious fucking problem. And if you were sexually molested as a child, you have a problem that could last your whole fucking life. Those are the only two categories of people that I'm willing to allow have problems. Everybody else has difficulties. So, you know, you get this thing, there is no potential wasted. It's like a scientific thing about the laws of thermodynamics, energy being created. They are exactly who they are. There's no feeling bad for these guys. No feeling bad for Jebby Bush as he cries. I understand. I lived through the 60s and the 70s and Rosie Greer singing, "It's all right to cry. Even big guys do it." You know, I had to talk with my kid, and I goes, "How come, when I showed up here, that girl was crying?" You've had two matches. I don't know if you know California State Wrestling. If you have a match, they enforce a 45-minute wait between your next match. So she has a match. 45 minutes later, she has another match. She loses her last match. We go. As we're leaving, I say, that girl was crying when I got here, and she's crying now. So, when I was a kid, my mother would say she was concerned about my autism. We didn't have a name for it then, but it wasn't autism so much as it was blunted affect. I would watch cartoons like this. My mother would come in and get nervous and go, "You realize this is supposed to be funny?" I go, "Yeah, I know it's funny. I'm amused, like I'm laughing inside." And then I realized, okay, I gotta laugh because it makes her nervous. So it's a social event, like laughing publicly, expressing something. It gives people a certain amount of, like, you ever go to a movie with those people who look at you in the movies, like they laugh and they look at you. It's like, yeah, I got it. Yeah, it's a funny moment. I got you're here, I'm here, we're looking at it. Look, I want to look at the screen. So my mother was worried. She was like, I'd play these basketball games. I was in the basketball league, which I hated. And I'd lose the game and I'd be like, okay, let's go home. She goes, Gene, my mother goes, Gene, she goes, some kids get so into the games. They really love these sports and they lose. They're just overwhelmed with emotion and start crying. And that's the stupidest fucking thing ever. Ever. So I'm repeating this story for my kid. I go, what could this, my kid said, well, when I lost, I cried. When? She goes, the match that you missed yesterday. I had to pick up another kid, so I missed one of the matches. If I'm there, she wins. If I'm not there, she loses. So we said we blame it on the youngest kid she locked herself out. I had to pick her up. So she goes, I go cry. And she goes, well, I was tired. I was there. I go, that's a kid. I'm not giving you a hard time for crying. I would give you a hard time if you're crying 45 minutes from now. But then I see Jeb Bush up there. He dropped that. Now I can relax with a smile on my face that that fucking prick is out of the race. Bumbling, stuttering, muttering prick that he was. And he's crying, and his wife is crying behind him. I guess they don't want to give that back, that $100 million that they got from their super PAC. And I wouldn't give it back either. Bushes have never given a nickel back to anybody, so why are you crying? But this whole public thing where it's a, look, you know what? I'm not saying crying in public is bad. If it keeps me from getting shot, I'll cry in a second, you know. If I'm having a serious emotional event, generally not behind a microphone, unless I'm on stage, which I've done, but, you know, it's not because I lost something. Don't you understand? It's not just me being an egomaniac. When I lose, I go, I lost to a lesser man. What the fuck is that about? God must be trying to do him a favor. You know, the Jeb is crying, but I digressed a little bit. So Scott Coker et al., Bellator, they are crafting a third way. You know, remember the thing Andy Grove said about you have to create competitive spaces to your competitive spaces, and you have to fill them. Because if you don't fill them, competitors will fill them. So you have to be like a helicopter. It takes 10 hours of mechanical work on a helicopter to keep it in the air for an hour. I remember that from when I was at Defense Electronics magazine. It's the same thing, because a helicopter is a machine that's constantly trying to throw itself apart. This is the same kind of thing. You can't leave. So what Scott Coker is doing is positioning Bellator to fill in the spaces between premium UFC and WWE, which has got no real vested interest in anything other than show. So show sport, midway, third way, Bellator. And Clovis Hancock, maybe he didn't know, oh, he was a late stage addition. Really? Late stage addition, really? Give a guy 6 days notice and he comes out and he gasses. I mean, something happened because the guy, he won the fight, and he was a jiu-jitsu guy, so I was pretty happy that he won the fight. But he looked like crap on his way to winning the fight. And you know who cares? Nobody. Nobody at Bellator cares. Wait till these numbers come back. They do not care, because they did what they set out to do. They embraced their potential to the fullest, and that's all. Oh, well, Clovis Hancock looked like shit. How much did Clovis Hancock cost? Don't you know that at the end of the day, it's about creating value for your shareholders? People who have invested in it don't give a shit whether he was conditioned. They give a shit whether we give a shit. Now you say, well, Eugene, it's self-defeating. What about the guy who texted you and said it's ruined, the damage is irreversible? Oh, you'll get over it. The calculations, I mean, it's like an insurance company. They're not telling you, you know, what they think you're going to do. They're going to tell you what they know you'll do, because they've looked at every single case. If you are 17 and have testicles, you're going to crash that fucking car. And when you crash that car, it's going to cost us this much money. I'm not thinking it's going to happen. I know it's happened. It's not like Scott Coker is a bum. It's not like he hasn't sold Strikeforce to the UFC for oodles of cash. It's not like he's built several organizations up ex nihilo. From nothing, he created something. No mistake. This is not accidental. Joe Angel Zamora versus Mike Trin. Mike Trin, he was a Vietnamese fighter from Texas. I think he's from Houston. The formula becomes clear. The fighters in Texas, they're Texas fighters. You know something else? Mike Trin was the most muscular-looking Vietnamese guy I've ever seen. You know where I'm going with this before I finish? What's the drug testing regime for Bellator fighters? You know what? It doesn't fucking make a difference. Haven't you been listening? Several of these guys, I kept wanting to say, hey, okay. There were a lot of guys that my spider sense was tingling. Justin Wren versus Juan Torres, great fight. Once again, you know, Justin Wren was the battling hippie, and Juan Torres was, you know, so gassed at the end. He's like, fuck it. Fuck this. Fuck it. Fuck you. I'm just going to lean against the cage with my hands at my waist, and I'm going to try to move my head. I got some head motion. And he's like high-fiving, low-fiving people. He's screaming at the crowd. He's telling the ref, Big John's like, I love being in here, man. This is like a dream. Yeah. He reminds me of Tom Cruise from that movie Taps. It's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. Got it. Got it. It's part of your MMA fantasy. It's a part of your rock and roll dream. Got it. And as you start to watch this show with this shit in mind, with the words of the lunatic Surreal in your head, you start to realize, this is some tri-level chess shit. You know, it is the same kind of thing. I saw these people, you know, they had a stick with what appeared to be a butterfly net on the end, and they were running around through a field in England. And I'm like, what are they trying to catch? What are they trying to catch? And it's billowing. The thing at the end of the stick is billowing. Like if you have a butterfly net, the air moves through so it doesn't billow, it hangs. This is billowing. I go, it's not a net. It's a plastic bag. And they run over to these mason jars with this plastic bag, and they throw it down over the top of the mason jar, and they shut the mason jar shut. What the fuck is this? They're selling air from the English countryside. It's the second time I've heard it. You know, at some point, people are sitting around, man, I got all this rotten fish. I know. It's not accidental. None of this is that you do everybody a disservice. You display yourself to be a mark if you think this is accidental. It's not. And once you realize it's not accidental, you're like, well, there are two types of people in this world, my friend. There are those of us over here who are outraged because, oh, I'm right. Superman flies. You know, in terms of physics, this is completely impossible. You're not getting it as a movie, right? You know, this is a movie. He doesn't need the cape. He's not really flying. Don't be in that camp. Be in the other camp, the wised up camp that knows that Scott Coker is not doing any of this by accident. Okay, that's fine. Middle of the fight, you realize this is all purposeful. Anthony Ivy versus Jason Lagale. I watched every single one of these fucking fights. And there were some fighters on these cards that were like actually interesting. You got steroids and no steroids, you know, Hollis and Adrian Yanez. And you're like listening, but I'm just gonna skip through some stuff because we don't really give a shit, right? I mean, on the Care Don't Care preview, when they said Richard Neat and Isaac Villanueva, I was like, well, come on. Do you care about those guys? If you care about those guys, I'm venturing a guess that you are those guys. Emmanuel Newton versus Linton Vassell. I picked Emmanuel Newton because he's a friend of Knuckle Up. And I thought before, okay, I thought, well, you know, I didn't like so much that he's laying around with the Bible and they call him the hardcore kid and he comes out to some church music. I'm sorry. You know, I'm not an atheist. You should know this. I'm not an atheist, but I, you know, I don't talk about the shape of my scrotum. I don't describe my scrotum for you. My scrotum is not personal necessarily. Any man with testicles keeps them in his scrotum. However, it's just something I don't need to share. It doesn't interest me to share it, and I feel very much the same way about religion. Your belief system doesn't mean shit to me. Except if you tell me, it means to me that you're probably pre-notifying me of your intent to screw me over. No, man, I'm Christian. And then right away, I mark you in my head as a red flag. Because I know at that point, you'll do anything to me. Because you'll be forgiven. It's fine. But Bukowski said it best. The guy who's going into the cage, crossing himself, that guy always loses. Well, Bukowski's wrong about that, and he's dead. But Emmanuel Newton, all right, he's afraid to knuckle up. I picked him, and he lost this fight. Why? I don't know. Don't know. It's hard to tell. But in the end, the outcome is not really the point. I mean, Linton Vassell is British. Maybe they're trying to build up. I mean, he effectively ruined King Mo, stopped him twice, Emmanuel Newton, and then got, roached by McGreary. Fine. He's a bona fide, at this point now, Bellator star. But the fight was a nothing fight. This is what the guy is talking about. He was texting me, irreversible damage. Melvin Guillard and Derek Campos, these guys came out hitting for the fences. And then, of course, the strangest, the most surreal thing was Mike Tyson doing the play-by-play. And if you didn't realize where you were when they had Tyson doing, the play-by-play, that should have been your first clue. That should have been your first clue. Like there was a guy who had been at Treblinka, and they were talking about the violins, concentration camp violins, and they've repatriated some of these, and they're having a traveling symphony of Nazi era concentration camp violins. Most of the owners were killed, or just dead from old age. But some of these are fantastic violins, and so they're having a series of concerts around the world to raise money for something or other. This is true. I'm not making this up. And this one guy was talking, and he was talking about he was 20 years old. He's 92 now, or I don't know how old he is now. He's in his 90s now. He's 22 then. I'm not good with the math. And he said, when he first got to Treblinka, the band was playing. He goes, you could make out if you were a musician. The band was playing, and the first thought that his mother had said was, well, how bad of a place could it be? They've got music. And of course, his mother was subsequently put to death, but they let him live because they found out he could play the violin. So he was in the band. Yeah, So how I mean, Guillard and Derek Campos, they fought Campos is one of those guys where I'm looking at him and going, oh, drug tested, huh? Who? There's the guy who Phil Baroni hires to do his drug test, the same guy. Okay, whatever. That's not the point. It's not the point at all. The point at all, who gives a fuck about the outcome? But, you see Mike Tyson there, and that's the point. That's the point where you're like, when you show up at Treblinka and they're playing about how bad could it be? Mike Tyson's sitting there doing it. If that wasn't the tip-off to you that things were in Strange Town, then you should at that point have understood, hey, wait a minute, there's a smokestack over there. Now, you might be confused because the analog, I'm comparing it to a terrible thing, but this is the exact opposite. It was a good thing. To me, the sign that Tyson was there meant that all bets were off, that we were in that 3 commercial minutes at a basketball game where the midget clowns come out and are jumping on trampolines and shooting confetti guns and t-shirt guns while the cheerleaders do their cheerleading thing, and it's just craziness. That's where we are. And Tyson was perfectly entertaining. Yes, I know. No letters, please. I know he was a convicted rapist. But, this is we've talked about that ad nauseum. But I have to say it gave me pleasure to see him, slurring, stuttering. But people go, it was Mike Tyson drunk. And then the Bellator has this whole thing where they're running, tweets from people below. And I'm looking at Big Boy 79. Who the fuck gives a fuck with Big Boy 79? It doesn't matter. It's sticky. All of Bellator is designed to be sticky in an SEO sense. And Kevin Ferguson and Dafir Harris, this was terrible. These guys knew they were fighting, but it doesn't matter. It wasn't booked to be good. Much like Shamrock and Hoist Gracie was not booked to be good. And he's trying to come up with all this gray hair on his chest and his back. He's trying to generate some outrage. Oh, he it was delayed. And then of course they show the whole thing and you see him getting kneed in the groin and he fights through it, but then it kind of came. Doesn't matter, man. Doesn't matter, you know. It's only happened to a 53-year-old fighter, the most dangerous man in the world. Stop. It doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter in the end, what do you gain and what do you lose? Well, you gain those guys who are over here in that WWE camp. And you keep casual midway to the premium UFC type folks. It's a Friday night. I'm not going out. It ends early. I'll check it out. Then I'll hit. And people are like, oh man, Kimbo Slice. It is fight via analytics. It's fight via analytics. And you might not like it, but just like this freaking election, it says more about the people you share the planet with than you want to admit. Because they're not booking a fight like this if people are not watching a fight like this. And the numbers, as of this now, that what I'm doing the show now, the numbers are not there, but you know. And then, like I said before, when I said I had the bad feeling, all the fun and games and people are laughing at the joke at the Kimbo Slice, they can't raise their arms, and the guy's doing the fear Dada 5000 doing his pirouette and he spins, and then dude goes to the hospital. Now it's not so fucking funny. You know, you can never count on everything. You know, yanking guys out of real lives and real jobs, you know, glorified tough man stuff is, hey, you want to get in there, we'll put you on TV or give you $7,000. $7,000. Isn't that fantastico? And anyway, look, the lunatic Surreal says it best. Man, it was designed to get eyes, and it got eyes. And the joke is, he pops out of the cake and he goes, major look. Major look. Major look. I guess you haven't surveyed the TV landscape. Because in the TV landscape, what you get is shit way worse than that. The Ultimate Fighter TV show, masturbating in salads and urinating in people's juice. It's a cesspool. But you know what? It's not an accidental cesspool. It's a design cesspool. And when it's a design cesspool, you got to figure you're the mark. And you got nobody to blame but yourself. Now, insofar as this UFC that we just saw, UFC Fight Night. Yeah, let me get this up on my screen. The UFC Fight Night, Cerrone versus Oliveira, Cowboy versus Broke versus Beck versus Mountain. All right, man. All right, you know. I watched this whole thing too. You know, there's a band called SSD, and they had some song. They had the song off of their first record, The Kids Will Have Their Say. And the song was, How Much Art Can You Take? Okay. And I kind of was thinking about that in connection to the fighting. And I knew that I was in this kind of baton death march and that I had to watch these fights. I had to watch them. I couldn't half-ass watch them. Or like when I used to do porn reviewing, and I would just open up a little screen, and I knew it was a good porn if I would stop what else I was doing and watch. Otherwise, it was just people doing that lame kind of talking that's supposed to be so sexy, like Nicole Kidman in Eyes Wide Shut. You know, if you haven't seen Eyes Wide Shut, I suggest you see it because it's a fucking comedy. Most people don't know this. It's a comedy. So this was unlike, now we have a premium brand now. So we have UFC Fight Night, Cerrone versus Oliveira, Cowboy versus Broke versus Back versus Mountain. And you have Shamil versus Abdullah and Anthony Hamilton. And we cared about this in the Care Don't Care preview because I said I want to see what fantastical way Anthony Hamilton would come up to lose. And he did lose. But I have to say that I thought that he was kind of robbed. I thought it was a nothing fight. Lauren Murphy versus Kelly Fasciols was not a nothing fight. These chicks fought their asses off. And Lauren Murphy, I'm sitting there looking at her and go, she looks like she's got a problem with alcohol. Right as Brian Stan starts talking about the problem she had with alcohol. So chalk one up for prescience, or maybe I know what the underbelly looks like. But it was a great fight. It was not care. Both of these fighters moved to care in my book. It happens. It happens. Ashley Evans Smith against Marion Renault. Ashley Evans Smith is a known associate. Used to train up here in the Bay Area. I used to run into her at Fairtex. And so because of that, I don't know that I picked her to win because Marion Renault is older, and I typically pick an older fighter. I don't remember. Kid Nate accuses me going back and forth. It seems consistent that I would have picked Ashley Evans Smith, even though I thought Renault was going to win. You have to watch the Care Don't Care preview and tell me what I said. I don't remember. Nathan Coy, Jonathan Webb. I picked Jonathan Webb to win. Of course, he lost. Anthony Smith and Leonardo Gourmadas, I didn't care. Olawale Bambose, I picked him to win over Daryl I said he was Daniel Sarafian was being thrown as bait. Chum, I described him as chum, the Bangbose, and he certainly was. Sean Strickland, Alex Garcia, I think I picked Strickland. So it's not a bad night. I didn't care about Krause and Campbell, Chris Camozzi and Riggs. I picked Riggs. Sad to see him go, but once again, the clocks don't run backwards, man. Nobody's got one of those that I know about, and it happens. You know, I'm thinking about Joe Riggs of Nick Diaz fame. I'm thinking about Joe Riggs when I first saw him at Gladiators Challenge. Not the same guy necessarily. Dennis Bermudez against Kawajiri. We both, Japanophiles that we are, we both picked Kawajiri. And, of course, had our gift extraordinaire, Dennis Bermudez, fuck with our night. Corey Garbrandt and Augusto Mendes cared because Mendes is a phenomenal black belt. And, of course, he got starched by Cody. And Derek Brunson against Hone. We picked Brunson, so it's not a bad night. And Cerrone and Cowboy versus Cowboy, it ended with it's like you got a guy who's Brazilian, he doesn't know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What are you going to do? How do you feel after this fight? I feel like I just watched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 fights, and probably about the same number of fights on the Bellator. I think I watched 26 fights. That's about 6 hours of fucking fights. And do I feel like a better person for it? Fuck no. But that's not the point. The point is not did I make a smart bet at the casino. The point is not did I make a small bet at the casino. The point is not did I make a bet that I could afford at the casino or did I make an out of control. The point is that I betted at the casino. You can only beat the casino if you don't open your wallet in or near the casino. But once your ass hits that couch, you're done. We got. To quote John Liddon, ever feel like or to paraphrase, ever feel like you've been robbed? We get robbed all the time. That's the nature of the world we live in. It's okay, though. There's some types of robbery that are okay. They're really okay. You know, like if you park in a parking spot with a meter, you know you're going to get robbed. You know that you're not going to get back in a fucking hour. You know that. You're playing the odds. You lose. You got robbed. You can live with it. Outside of yous and me's, you know, I mean, the question is, were they effective? And these were both effective because they were both to tee up other things that otherwise it was an excuse to show 3 hours of commercials talking about the money fight. Dos Anjos and the premium brand, Dos Anjos and McGee. premium brand, pop brand. It was the next fight they have with Ben Henderson coming up, which everybody will be better. But it's funny how the shadow world of Bellator, where it's all intentionally shabby. The man with the voice, the ring announcer. And then this nervous guy sitting next to Tyson. This is this cat who's doing the color commentary with Jimmy. Hey man, did you even know you were announcing the fight? Is it possible, to quote Charles Manson, that we could ever dream of a place to go much further than before? Is it possible that anybody could create a longing for Goldberg? Is it at all possible that it could happen? Yes, it did happen. But you know what? Nothing happened that wasn't supposed to happen. It all, like my grandmother used to say, it all happened according to Hoyle. According to Hoyle. If you play cards, you know what that means. So I feel better about the sandwich of shit that I've eaten than I did before I realized I was eating shit. Does that make sense to you? I mean, before I was sitting there going, man, it's like I knew these guys who were getting really fucking high and they went to Burger King. And one guy was like looking around, like, the ketchup, man, the ketchup. And when he turns around, they grab the meat patty off of this hamburger. One guy jams it in his mouth and eats it. The guy doesn't know he's done this, opens it, puts the ketchup on the patty, on the muffin or the bun, and then goes back to eating it. And they're like watching him, waiting for the punchline. Eventually, the guy delivers. He was like, man, these hamburgers are lousy. Didn't realize it. Right? So I'm eating this shit sandwich and I'm grousing the whole time. I'm grousing till the next day. And the lunatic Surreal says, no. Don't you realize that they're not doing anything other than selling shit sandwiches? And I'm like, well, you know, as shit sandwiches go, it's perfectly okay. I mean, you know, they had the big screens and then there's a woman singing Ken Shamrock down the aisle. And Frank Shamrock's even there in his dressing room laying on the floor. Frank Shamrock, who criticized during the interview I had about it, Ken is training with the same fucking guys. Of course he's not going to get anywhere. It's crazy. I don't know why he's still doing this. But he came to support his brother. I don't know. It's a pre-fight. I don't know how he supported him. He's laid on his back with his eyes closed, but maybe just his presence. So Lost Battalion-wise, it's Popeye. So Lost Battalion-wise, we got to ask ourselves a few questions. And those questions are, who ends up the Lost Battalion? Somebody raised a sage point, a la Soylent Green. He said, you do realize, of course, that you yourself, Eugene, are in the Lost Battalion. And it's tricky because what qualifies entry in the Lost Battalion is awareness. Now, I'm aware of the fact that I'm past it, but I'm not aware of the fact that I'm in the Lost Battalion, meaning in all likelihood that I am in the Lost Battalion. The Lost Battalion is a shadow reality where everything that exists in the real world exists in the Lost Battalion, except it's misty. So I'm doing a show called Knuckle Up in the mist. You know who's not in the Lost Battalion? Ariel Helwani. He's not in the Lost Battalion. It doesn't matter. It makes me eminently qualified to understand who is in the Lost Battalion with me, because I bump into them in the mist. And I got news for you right now. My number one pick person, yes. Ken Shamrock. I mean, this is all, I'm not telling you something that you don't know. You know this. You know this. That's not the surprising thing. The element of surprise that comes with the Lost Battalion is based on shit I'm going to say now. Ronda Rousey. If you don't think she's in Lost Battalion, you don't know Lost Battalion. Very reasonably stands a chance that you might be in the Lost Battalion as well. I don't know if you saw the interview that she had done with the babies. We touched on it, and if I did it, and I want to kill myself, and you have to listen to NPR. And once you figure out the Rosetta Stone to understanding NPR, it gets hard to hear anything else. And they're in love. They're in love. They love it. They love it like catnip. And what they love is tragedy. You hear Terry Gross. Now, I realized when you wrote that platinum record of yours, it seems like it was maybe inspired by the death of your mother. Is that right? And then the person unloads because people love their fucking tragedy. You know, scientists have done studies to say, you know, the brain actually elides, E-L-I-D-E-S, elides over tragedy. It forms scar tissue over it so you don't remember it. There's traumatic shit that happened to me that if you push me, I'll remember it. But by no means does the brain want to. The brain has gleaned all of its lessons. Don't go into the cave where that bear was because you will get your ass raped. Do not go in that cave. Your brain has already made that calculation. So the actual impact and the particulars of walking into the cave, getting raped by the bear, you don't have to relive that stuff. You let it go. But at NPR, they want to bring you back. They want to bring it back. That's what talk shows. I told you about the time I was on Jenny Jones. Not because they always bring an authority in. And so they brought me in as an authority on people who hate their race. And I was supposed to say something overarching. And you can down a Shalala on somebody else's show, not on my show. And so I'm in the green room, and at first she comes in, Jenny Jones comes in, she's talking to me. She's got some leather pants on, trying to be all sexy with me, whatever. And then she comes back, and she sees a look on my face where at first I'm going to have some postmodern hijinks here. It's going to be really fun. And then I watch the show, and she comes back in, and she sees my face. She goes, oh, my God, these people are fucking morons, right? I was like, yeah. She was like, well, it is what it is. And she walks out. She immediately sends her producer in, and the producer says to me, okay, you're going to get out there, and I don't want you to respond like the Stanford graduate you are. Vita Belford's going to be an alumni? They're sending letters out now? Well, that's about a mile from where I am right now, so we'll have him come into the studio. And she said, I don't want you to interview the Stanford graduate you are. I want to talk to you like a man. You just get out there. You talk like you. And I get out there, and I pull off a line from Taxi Driver. She says, well, what do you have to say about all this? Editor-in-chief of Code magazine from Los Angeles, Eugene S. Robinson. And I look at them, and I go, and the audience is like, they don't know whether they should hate me or whether I'm going to support race hatred. We're talking about people hating their own races. And I go, you do realize, of course, that there's no reality to any of this. And I essentially shit on the show, the entire premise of the show, and then pretty much they break for commercial, and I'm gone. So I did have my postmodern yuck because the limo was like, the limo brings you there, but there was no limo for me there. You could get your cab back to your freaking hotel, you prick. So Ronda gets on the show, and she's, they got her the confession, and she's talking, and it's all of a sudden I realize in one shocking fell swoop, she's gone, coming back, never coming back. It's all a head game. It takes a different time. It takes the kid that comes off the court not crying because he lost a basketball game to be the kid that wins that basketball game. Doesn't give a fuck. Win, lose, better than you. I say that every year. They have the MMA Journalist Awards. I say, win or lose, I'm still better than you. Oh yeah, well you got some what? Ronda's not coming back, man. And then Ariel Helwani, I got this thing here. He's talking about, well, Ariel Helwani on Ronda Rousey's suicide comments. 43,000 views. He's like, oh, we're just glad to have her back. It's why she was so loved, and is because she speaks from the heart. That's not why she was loved. She was loved because she was a badass bitch. Don't try to fucking give me this repackaging. She came out to bad reputation. She was a badass. You know, we're doing the Prince thing of never seen a pretty girl look this tough. I don't find it very pretty, but whatever. She's nice enough. I like Ronda. The sexy, pretty thing I'm not buying, but that's my standing thing for fighters. I don't care what they look like. You know, once you're barefoot and you're punching somebody in the face, as far as I'm concerned, you're a fighter. Felice Herrig, don't buy it. I don't care. I can't, my mind is not open to accepting you as both. Yeah, I can be sexy. Misha Tate keeps, I had to defriend her, sending me all these bikini photos. It's like, no, you got titties. I got it. You're not going to have sex with me. Come on. You're not going to. Come on. So she's gone. And I hate to be the one to tell you this, but she's never coming back. Oh, she'll fight again. It was like, what? She got her first fucking royalty checks. I was like, whew, never. I'll see. I'm in Deadpool, baby. Yeah. It's not like she forgot how to fight. You don't see The Rock going back to WWE on a permanent basis, do you? No. Movie money is good money, Jack. I'm telling you, it's good money. And Honda, she will come back because she's got this thing in her head. But this whole thing about looking at that man and the babies, and I have a new take on that. We're assuming that the fitness model that was Mrs. Travis Brown was telling the truth. We're assuming it because we've done this weird transposition thing where we like Ronda and she's like our kid sister, and we like her, and she's, you know. And then I see pictures of the fitness model that he was married to. I'm like, yeah, I don't know that I want to take her word on it. You know, without her word, why do we dislike Travis Brown? Oh, because he was cheating on. I don't know that he was cheating on his wife. He could have fucking moved out and had an apartment, but because of the kid's sake, they didn't say anything about being separated. It's his own business. She didn't seem especially surprised. She was cranky. Typically the response, one person or another. I'm not even going to get into the whole, you know, good woman, bad man, bad woman, good man thing. We could talk about that some other time. That's heavy. That's up there with my suitcase theory. If you remember these, good. If not, remind me. We'll talk about it next week because I've already gone over it time-wise. So, in other words, this was the Geyer has turned for me. It wasn't a shit sandwich we were eating in Bellator 149. It was a shit sandwich. And Cerrone Cowboy versus Cowboy wasn't weak tea premium brand stuff. It was weak tea premium brand stuff. And Ronda Rousey, you know, maybe Travis Brown's all right. But to have this badass bitch be mouthing these empty, kind of suburban, you know, suburban soliloquies about childhood and motherhood, the woman's place, it's really disappointing. That's the kind of thing, if I was sitting there with my daughters watching, I would want to put my fingers in their ears. That life throws you a couple of curveballs and a couple of scuffles, and you look across at this man and want to have babies. All right. Okay. God love you. But I don't know anything anymore. I don't know whether Travis is a good guy or a bad guy. I just won't get caught up in the media cycle. I won't. It's not a shit sandwich. It's a shit sandwich. That's the difference. And if you don't want to participate, you wouldn't be here. Anyway, that's the show. I hope I made some sort of sense. all 46 viewers of you. Glad to see you here. You've gotten it before the rest of the world gets it tomorrow. I got a piece up on Ozzy.com. You should check out the intro. It changes every week. The intro to the show that appears on Bloody Elbow. But they actually published my Poland will be collapsed and cease being a country by 2020, which has me being attacked by the ruling party in Poland. And they ran my Hitler escape from Berlin piece. Good week for me on Ozzy. Good week. Anyway, that's the end. This is round number 320. What is it? 320. See what happens when Kid Nate makes me do this. This is round 300. Oh, my God. 27. I'm your host, Eugene S. Robinson. We've gone a little bit long. We will see you soon with Care Don't Care, as well as If I Did It. We've got some big weekend fights coming up next weekend. So we will see you soon. Look what you made me do!